my college draft is proudly announced my conference called Educate You. Educate You core areas will cover recruitment, retention, and how to build a strong alumni base of underrepresented and first-generation college students.
I have to go to a 4-year, right? And so when you start realizing that this doesn't align with my purpose, this doesn't align with my passion, they want to get out because you got to try to cut losses at some point in time. And that's the hardest problem. It's the hardest thing for many minority students is because we don't make as much money. We are non-traditional. We are working multiple gigs or whatever the case may be to make things happen. But what happens when you realize this program is not for me, but I've already invested 2 years. My family, I'm the first generation. My family's depending on me to finish this out. But I already know this is not what I want to do. Whereas someone else who might not look like you, who has a little bit more financial backing, can easily jump ship and be okay because they can go make an earning that can supplement the loss that they took. Whereas the loss that you're taking as a minority student when you decide to cut ties is going to be a greater financial, not reflection, but I can't think of the word, but it's going to be a greater financial impact on you long term. And so I think 4-year institutions need to stop giving this narrative that you have to go to a 4-year. I think we have to start switching it up, and that goes back to what you're saying is that start partnering with 2 years. Check out, go get your education out of community college first, then test the market, see if it helps you. If it does help, then come back, right? Because at least when you need to go test the market, you're making income. So you made some more money than what you were before you started community college. And that way, you know what I'm saying, you're buffering yourself a little bit financially. So if it doesn't work out with the 4-year degree, you're okay. You're not getting a financial hit. You're not being upside down financially.
I also think that,
and we're a for-profit institution. We can't stop saying it, we're nonprofit.
I think that I kind of push back on that whole sentiment that transfer students don't do 4 years. I don't think the numbers really bear that out, at least from what I've seen. I think that if you look at transfer students compared to students who come as freshmen, yes, their retention graduation rates are lower, but when you compare that subpopulation of transfer students, well, what population are they coming from? The first generation, the low income, the minority students, and then when you start to kind of pull some of those numbers out, it's at the same level as those other students with those same type of issues. So it's because we're not addressing the issues that first generation students are dealing with, what minority students are dealing with. But there's this, and that goes back to that stigma about 2 years and 4 years. I think 2 years are preparing students just as much as 4 years. You know, it's just that the numbers may look bad or worse than what the average is at that institution, but when you compare it to, is it stop again?
Keep on.
When you compare it to, well, I think I'm making a point at that point, but it just makes me nervous to I mean, Johnson County Community College here in Kansas City is one of the best schools in the country. You know, the students that we get from Butler Community College do very well at the institution, and from my understanding, do very well all across the state. So it's hard for me just to kind of say a blanket statement. They're just coming and flunking out. You know?
Because there is, I mean, honestly, man, the affiliation that most of us have had with 4-year school. It's a stigma a lot of times when they're transferring in because it's almost like we were talking about earlier about the classes, and so if you're freshman through, it's like you're purebred, and if you're a transfer, you're like this hybrid of some sort, and so they watch the transfer as if they are some type of like alien through the system, like, okay, I told you, and so they start spending more time recruiting the traditional freshmen as opposed to going to
well, you gotta look at it from a business lens. Kind of what Brian was saying is that for a 4-year institution, your greatest yield of your return on investment is the 4-year student. Because you got them for 4 years paying tuition versus the transfer who's only paying 2 years.
But who are most of the transfer? The normal athletes.
No. There's a lot of students that's coming in from any kind of, because if you think like one field in particular that you get a lot of transfers coming in, nursing. You get a lot of people go to a 2-year institution. They do that RN to BSN thing, right? And they go to a 2-year institution at first, right? And so, I think what we got to also pay attention to that you did not mention that's happening is there's an uptick in what we call reverse transfers, where students at these 4 years are realizing I can't make it, or this class is too expensive. Let me go to a community college and let me take the college algebra there, or let me take this particular biochemistry class at the community college, and then it's transferred
But
back.
the 4 years, well, to be honest, man, they were, well, some of them were trying to stop that from happening, because once they were able to go that 2 year, they were, like one of the schools I was just at, they were going to a 2 year, and then they found out, like, well, dang, what am I going back there for? Then they started taking more classes at that community college.
Because they save money.
And then they transferred to somewhere else, right? And so the 4 years trying to block the classes from transferring and stuff to keep that from happening. Like, they're trying to get the transcripts from these schools.
So, kind of along those lines, I'll be curious to see what you guys' idea or perspective is on this. A lot of community colleges now are starting to add bachelor degrees,
Yes.
right? So that's definitely going to cause some type of friction. I know quite a few of them in Colorado have started adding BSNs, so the students can now just do their whole 4 years at
There's a school
at a
in
community college.
Kansas.
Okay, so here's what I think about that, and I'm going to talk about the return on investment and the fact that for the institutions. But I want to just say real clear: higher education in this country is far too expensive. We have instead of taking the innovation with technology and decreasing the cost of higher education, we increase the cost based on accessibility. So we put a premium on someone being able to go to school online and went higher, right? Because, it's accessible to you. You can go to school in your pajamas. Why don't you pay $300 more per credit hour so you can do this? Higher education in this country is mad expensive, and what we didn't recognize back when they were doing the study with the MOOCs, the mass online courses, with Harvard and Yale, and all of them got together. It seems like we weren't getting this then. We weren't getting that what they were doing is they're researching, because they're going to put a stamp on that eventually. And I asked one of the administrators at an institution, higher level administrator, what happens when they have 100,000 students in one class? And what happens when they say, if you pay $50 for this class, we'll give you a credit? What happens when they say it? Because our entire education system is based on how the Ivy set it up. When the Ivy stamp, right, when some of the Ivies go, you know what, higher education is too expensive, we're going to revolt against this. And what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the cost dramatically, because what they're doing now is collecting data to show that this is how we were able to finagle this. And you can get a whole college degree now for $5,000.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? That's not real yet. What I'm saying is this is where innovation is taking us. Because we are competing with other countries where people don't pay for higher education. And because we're not preparing, we're so busy trying to figure out, a 4 year trying to figure out what's my return on investment. I just need to make sure everybody comes here and pays $40,000 a year. Because we're so busy thinking like that, we're going to miss out on an opportunity to create, if I got 100,000 people paying $50, you see what I'm saying? For 6 weeks instead of 16 weeks.
Right.
And then I throw in some sort of experience with that too that they can opt into. You've just shut down some major institutions. And you have the right stamp on that, an Ivy. And that's what I'm saying, that we are missing in higher education. We're not innovating because we are greedy, and we're focused on our return on investment. The other thing I was going to say, within the traditional system that we operate within right now, if we talk about the ROI, we're busy focused on the fact that this transfer student came to our school and they haven't been here since and I'm losing my return on investment, instead of thinking about how do I take this 2 year student that transferred here and turn them into a graduate student. I am gonna have them for 4 years, because I'm gonna turn them into a graduate student. And then we have money coming from the state for each student. Your $500, $1,000 example, this really pisses me off because it happens a lot to students. Why are we dismissing students over $1,000 when you get money from the state for each student? You've lost more. If we get $8,000 per undergraduate student at our institution, why would we dismiss that student over $1,000? I'm just saying, it doesn't make any logical sense. Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Well, I want to stick up for 4 years, but I just want to say that the education system, the reason why it's so expensive and why I don't think we're innovating is because I feel like a lot of our organizations are are running scared. To be honest with you, they're playing, they're doing things to just kind of stay afloat. There's a very narrow tunnel vision on money because a lot of our institutions are bleeding. You know,
and we're built big, right? I mean, it takes a lot of money.
And so for the example that you gave about the $8,000 per student dollars that are coming in, the average appropriation per student has been on the decline since 2000, whereas institutions, even though the cost of education is going up because of technology, nobody was paying their faculty well, and now everybody's like, faculty are going to leave, so they're trying to pay faculty. Once again, it's not even just the salary of faculty that's ballooning these budgets. It's the benefits that they're trying to pay off too. So you're trying to operate an institution that's becoming increasingly expensive, and you're getting less dollars per student. The reason why we're getting less dollars per student is because during the recession and after recession, all of our, and I'm not speaking in general here, all of our enrollments just ballooned. So because students were going back to school, right? But the revenues never caught up. So we have institutions like, okay, we're not getting enough money from the state. Tuition, and like you said, the research grants are really all we have coming to us. The Fed, just again, for the second year in a row or third year in a row, has decreased the amount of money available for research grants.
Yep.
So it's like all we have is that tuition dollar. And if I have a online class and I think I can make more money off of, instead of thinking of it as a innovative solution for education, I'm thinking of it as an innovation solution for my financial budgets, right? And that's why I go to free for all, because I feel like there has to be some sort of federal sponsorship of higher education if that's going to.
Well, I mean,
and regulation.
If you look at it from the financial lens, there's so many indicators that show that higher education is on the bubble. It's very much mimicking what the real estate market did, right? Where you were able to get a loan, buy a house you couldn't afford, and then when payments start coming due, and you had to start defaults, and default rates were going up, and that was the first indication that something's not right in this market. But what was the story that was always told in America about real estate? It's something that always appreciates. It won't depreciate, right? And then what happens? Everybody starts buying into that. It starts to balloon up, and then when it hit hard. Well, what's the same thing with higher education? Everybody can get any kind of loan. Go to a school they probably can't afford with a loan. They tell you, education is going to help you get a job that's going to get you to another level. But when you start adding in, let's not even add in this minority, but most people ain't getting what they're told should be able to get based off of their value for their education. So now you can't pay back that loan. So now we're starting to see, and do you know where the most common defaults of student loans are? $250, $500, stuff like that. It's the most common default on loans. And so when you think about that, we're on a balloon, we're on the tick, right? And so also going to what you were saying, Brian, we got to stop looking at this thing as we're nonprofit number one, but we got to start. I don't understand how are we a public institution when only 28% of your refund or your funds is coming in from the federal government. You're no longer a public institution. You're operating like a private, and so really this goes back to the very top, which is now becoming a system of the have and the have-nots. Yes. But I think what people fail to realize, and when people study the history of higher education, when Harvard first started, education has always been designed to separate you. It was the whole thing when you went to education was to separate you from the other people. Because even when the first colleges started, or you have the Macedonian tablets back in the early, 1300 or whatever, BC times, it was all about who had the money to access teaching.
The knowledge.
That's right. And it was always separated. When we started in Harvard in America, it was to separate gender, race, religious beliefs, because you was going to be a white, Protestant or white Christian preacher, and you have money, and you're going to the school. And now what's looking on?
And then they have the quotas for Jewish people, Irish people, all these great benevolent Ivy Leagues. They did some shady stuff.
It was always to keep someone separate and keep the access, and the access was through monetary gain and access.
Let's play something real quick. So I'm gonna myth versus fact. All right, I'm gonna throw it out. Some myth versus fact. So first question is college necessary? Myth, fact.
Myth.
I'm a fact guy on that.
I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent on it. I would say it's probably not 100% necessary, but obtaining knowledge is necessary. Not necessarily going to college.
So what side you on?
I would say myth.
Myth. Why do you say fact?
It makes me very difficult to say myth because it shouldn't be. I'll put it that way. It shouldn't be. If you have the knowledge, like say, Bill Gates and all of them, they were able to do the things that they did without a college degree, right? But when you have especially in business engineering, so many major and minor institutions that hire our students, and they're requiring a bachelor's degree to get into these jobs, no matter what you know, then it's hard for me to say you can go do whatever you want to do without that type of like it's still the gold standard to get into a lot of different positions. I mean, unless you're trying to be an entrepreneur or a creator or innovator on your own, if you're just trying to have like a regular 9-to-5 job after you finish your education, it's very difficult to get in those spaces without the higher education, 2-year, 4-year something. And then on top of that, if you look at I also find it very difficult for me to talk to students and say that higher education isn't the way when the earning potential has been bared out time and time again, where you earn, for a bachelor's degree, I think it's over $1 million more of it spent in your lifetime than if you don't have a bachelor's degree, right? So in terms of where I think the country is going, I think that the next big innovations are going to come from green jobs and green solutions. A lot of those things are going to be birthed out of and to those public spaces, and it's not really up to the institutions. Really, it's up to Google and you name whatever company, Cerner right here in town in Kansas City, right? Yeah, I can't say you can go work at Cerner if you don't have a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree, right? So that's the conflict that I have with it.
Well, I think that higher education, when you say is it necessary, I'm assuming that the end of that sentence was to be successful. That's how I heard.
You just leave. It's one of the type of things that I'll leave it to your imagination because the way it's communicated, there is no other side of it. We keep conveying it to these students.
Well, I guess I'm gonna go to what he's saying because I feel like we're at the bubble at this point because I think that the challenge that we get from students is that they are saying it is not necessary.
The students are saying that.
That's what I'm saying.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying the challenge we're getting is that they're saying if it's so necessary for me to be successful, because remember how they're looking at things and they're younger and they're if it's so necessary, then why is such and such and such and such, and why am I graduating with this much debt, and how come they can't get a job, and da 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 and da da da. So I agree with him wholeheartedly that college is a very good option, right? There are other options. You got military, you got trade, you have innovation, entrepreneurship. You have a lot of different options. So you have to figure out which one is good for you, is necessary for you to live out your purpose. College may not be that. You know what I mean? And I think that part of the problem with this message, as he's stating, is people are starting to get to the point where they're like, wait a minute, there's a problem in this system. And to be honest with you, a lot of times what we're selling is not what people are getting. And that is the biggest problem, in my opinion, with that system. They graduate, they can't get a job, not because they don't have the book sense. They go into corporate America, they go into these jobs, and how many of us have hired people and we're like, why would you think that made sense? Why can't you solve a basic problem? How many times have you hired somebody that come to you and go, we don't have any staples. You gonna come to me for that? I mean, what I'm saying is that the university system, we are not turning out, I'm talking as a whole, the type of employees that we need to be turning out, which is impacting our students' ability to be able to land those jobs. Because the value of the degree has decreased. You see what I'm saying?
The question on the floor right now, you take what you just said, are we giving these students half-truths? Those of us who so-called care, are we lying to our kids?
I would say this. I would go ahead and say, I feel like the American dream, you realize, is really American nightmare. Because what you end up finding out is that to pursue the dream, you, especially as a student, you are, because you don't know, you haven't lived life, you don't have the wisdom, you don't have the lived experience, you're relying on your mentors and elders to tell you what it is the path. And we're telling students and youth, education is the path, because you're going to get the degree. You have to look at how the degree served them in their generation.
Okay.
It's just like the whole notion of, it's very parallel to the whole notion of get a job and stay there for 30 years.
Okay.
Man.
Right? But what happened was, when Enron happened, that told our generation, you can no longer be loyal to an institution because an institution or a job can flip on you just like that and you're screwed.
That's right.
So that's when, if you think about it, right when Enron happened, that was the seeds that was sown into this whole entrepreneurship thing.
Right.
That's right.
That's when you start to see entrepreneurship being introduced into education and so on and so forth. Because now America's telling you, no, the system, you need to be loyal to the system, but the system doesn't have to be loyal to you.
That's right.
Just like we tell people in sports, you need to be loyal to the franchise, but the franchise don't. But that's why people get mad at the player leaving the team, but nobody gets mad at the team when they get traded.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, you gotta be loyal to the system, but the system needs to be loyal to you. So I'm saying, we tell these kids about this American dream of, you gotta dig yourself up and wrap yourself up by the bootstraps. But you're not giving them the freedom to be innovative in the pathways they need to do that. You're telling them, oh, well, you can't get a job, you got a bachelor's. Well, why can't I find other ways to be successful? Right? Why can't I be an entrepreneur in this and find ways? And as you think about it, that's why STEM is becoming so important.
That's right.
Because now STEM is showing that you don't need a degree to know how to do code and programming, because a lot of those high school kids are the ones who create these packages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They get a 1-year degree, 2-year package, C++, A+, all these things that they get, and they're making money because they're off to the races, because that's where it's going.
That's
right. And so why I say that's the American nightmare is because then if you go through the system, trusting the system, then you realize I'm now a financial slave. I have to go into the workforce to get some kind of compensation back to pay off the loans that I owe. And now I gotta make a sacrifice. So now if I feel like I'm valued at $90,000, but no one's willing to pay me that, but I got these loans due, I'll just take the job at 50. But now you're financially upside down. So now you're stuck in this financial slavery. You see what I'm saying? It's this market. And so that's why I say, is college necessary? No, we have to rethink how we do lifelong learning. You remember I said that earlier. Is that
That's what
it's how we have to reimagine. And one of the systems that I like the most is, when we look at the higher education system, is Denmark, for example. Denmark has a phenomenal higher education system. What they do is say, look, we believe that K through 12 is a right, like everybody else. And we believe that college should be a choice that leads to a right. So what we do is this: you take out a loan, just like we do here. You go to school, however much it costs. If you graduate and you cannot get the job at the market value that was promised to you, we turn that loan into a grant. You don't owe nothing because the system did not fulfill what it's supposed to do. We don't do that here. If you can't find a job, sorry, tough, and so on and so forth. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I guess I'm with that 100%. I think. Let me clarify a little bit. When you talk about the packages and things, I think it's still higher education. You know, that's still college, right? You still have to have the certification. You can't just. When I talk to students, and this is just to get some context of where I'm coming from. When I'm recruiting students and I'm talking to students, their belief is that they can just graduate. Some of them believe they have to graduate high school and they can just go out here and grind and get whatever they want. And that's to me, it's not a practical, real life scenario.
Right.
There has to be some sort of
input.
You have to have something that proves that you know what you're doing, right? Whether it's these patches or it's a a technical degree, there has to be something there. Even when you go in the military, you know, they're going to want you to get your certifications and things there too. And it's very difficult for me to see students, and I hate to say this because I hate to be so judgmental, but I believe in regressing towards the mean, the average person. I think that entrepreneurship is a great thing, and that there's a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs and don't have the grind to be an entrepreneur. So it's like, I know, and higher education is a space where it's safer for them, I think, because there's some handhold they have at our institution to where eventually we can get them to a point where they mature and they're actually ready to do something with themselves, I think. More than just saying, okay, I'm going to become a YouTube star and you don't want you don't have the materials and the technology to do it, but you just like it's like I know it all. I'm just going to do it after I graduate.
I mean, he's saying for the masses. To me, what I hear you saying is when you talk about the masses, this is how it go because it's the masses. Like this applies to the majority, the average person. This is going to work, and I think you're 100% correct. I mean, I think that education as a whole, let's just look, I mean, if you want to draw down to the numbers, there are benefits that come with education. When you talk about overall,
you can YouTube how to make a business plan, but are you gonna put the work in?
Wait, can I interrupt on that?
Just a second, I'm gonna finish the point that I'm with you. The benefits that come with education overall. I think that what I'm addressing more so, because I can't argue with that. I think what I'm addressing more so though is the fact that the reality is that one size doesn't fit all. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And I think that because we market like a one size fits all, when we get to that, and a lot of times when we get to that individual student, we forget that, oh, you know what? Maybe, I mean, are we listening to what that student's passion is? To where we're like, you know what, maybe, because I think to tell a student, maybe this is not for you. You kind of see what I'm saying? Like, I would love for you to go to college, but...
every student that I talk to that comes across, that's my first question. What are you passionate about? What is something that you feel like you can't live without? Because I've had several people come in and go, oh yeah, I'm gonna do nursing. Why are you doing nursing? Because I'm chasing the money.
Yeah, that's right.
Mom told you to go do this, but what is your passion? What is something that you can't live without? Because along this journey, just like in life, there's gonna be some obstacles and it's gonna get tough. And you're gonna need to have something to hold on to say, okay, this is gonna get me through this, compared to me going to get a degree for something that I don't like at all, and then I'm stuck doing this job for the rest of my life, and I hate every moment of it.
But I would like to push back a little bit and ask to think about this. The only reason why the narrative hasn't yet to change is because of the tradition and history of education, right? But think about just your institution. There is a point in history when tradition begins to stifle innovation.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is we're now at that point to where new millennials and generations coming up are saying the traditional way in which we're educating the country is starting to stifle innovation. Okay. And so this is why you start to see a lot of these younger cats doing the YouTube channels, and I don't like some of the pathways they're doing. Like I feel like a lot of people doing like the jackass approach, like I just do whatever I need to do to get people. Yeah. But they're realizing if I'm a social influencer, which is now a job, if you're a major social influencer, you're getting paid by the market people because they realize you got a brand. And think about when we talk about really like entrepreneurships and stuff, I think there's people who have grinds and hustles, but I think if you take those same people who, because you made the reference like some people just don't grind. I think some people grind, but here's the difference. I'm not going to say the only reason, but one of the things that was very influential in helping Mark Zuckerberg, whatever his name is, and Bill Gates get successful is that they were at an institution that had elite resources to help fund, and you had money that was able to cover up mistakes. Trump is experienced because he had money that helped him cover mistakes. He had $3 million as a baby to help him cover mistakes. So when you have the resources, or you can, if you go to this Harvard or Princeton, and I get to go to this alumni event and talk about my idea, and someone says, you know what, I'll throw in $280,000 that way, and you just test it out. You're not going to get that at some of these institutions that we go to, because the capital ain't there. So I'm saying there's a big thing where...
And the expectation.
But there's a big thing to where you can't just go express your idea that pushes against the norm, and someone say, go ahead and test that out.
But see, this is interesting because this is where I have to... You remember, have you all seen The Social Network, the movie? The Social Network?
About the Facebook thing, right?
Yeah. And what was so impressive to me about that film was the ideology from the dean of students. When the twins went and complained that their idea had been stolen, the dean looked at them and he said, okay, so what's the problem? And they're like, well, he stole our intellectual property. He stole our, what do you mean? Can't you see? And he said, the reason you were brought to this school is because we thought that you had the wherewithal to create and innovate something new, ideas. If he took yours, get another one. That was it. Because in their minds, you're here to do something. The whole system is different. And I think that has created a certain sort of infrastructure. When you talk about what's wrong with our schools, I think that's part of it, is that we put out robots and a lot of them put out innovators and creators. And that's the expectation. So much so that I can't even.
They say in the end the strong survive. These hurdles I'm facing